Hey everybody, welcome to our next Amphibia discussion stream. We're here to talk about Amphibia Season 3, Episode 7, Spider Sprig, and Olivia and Yunan on the newts with the heart emojis. Yes, Olivia is the OTP. I ship them. That is the ship. I'm really excited to be here today. We had some we have at least one really big episode to discuss today. The first one we will be talking about, but I'm going to be honest, we're probably going to be spending most of our time today talking about Olivia and Yunan. I'm really excited to get into these episodes. I'm here with my usual guest. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get him last week due to the schedule change, but I'm back with my bestie, my buddy from across the pond, Tom from Curmudgeon Media. We are going to be going ahead and diving right into the episodes. We have a lot to cover today, especially with our second episode. So we've got a few honks in the chat. We're going to get right into it, starting with Spider Sprig. This was a cute episode. I think it's a little unfair of this episode to be tacked on with the one that follows it, because it was really good. It was really fun. It built on some character building for Sprig in particular, you know. Yeah, I had to make the background as painful as possible this week. I was literally like crying, like tears were in my eyes as I was like making the background for the stream this week. So y'all have to suffer with me.
I was just kind of like grimacing when it happened. I just kind of grimaced.
Yeah, I hear ya.
The fan art I've seen is far worse than the scene itself.
Yeah,
some people really need to check themselves into therapy with some of the fan art I've seen. Some people, like, you all need to chill.
Some people have some issues they need to work out for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that you're feeling ill, Bort, but really glad that you could make it here with us today. Yeah, these episodes are really huge, so I'm glad that you could make it. Spider Sprig was fun. You know, like I was saying, we got this characteristic from Sprig in the past, right? Where he like feels this need to be liked by people, right? We saw that with Mrs. Croker in the first episode. And there's kind of one theme that I've been noticing kind of recurring throughout the entire show that comes up again in this episode that I want to bring up at the end. And I think that I want to bring it up in particular too, because I think it's relevant to the Olivia and Yunan episode. So I wanted to touch on that when we get to the end of the Spider Sprig episode, but we'll get there when we get there. What did you think of this episode, Tom?
I think that this episode, more than anything else, is a very, very directed criticism of superhero movies in general. Zack Snyder films more specifically. I know that the fact that it's Spider-Man themed or like Spider-Man adjacent, kind of masks that a little. But the whole thing about like massive collateral damage, that feels very. Considering that was like the central critique of the absolutely god-awful Man of Steel film, where just like it's almost comical how little Superman tries to contain the collateral damage in that movie. Like, you've got him just like, you know, you've got a guy will throw a truck at him and he'll just like casually like veer out of the way and let it plow into a building presumably full of people.
Yeah, you know? No, totally. I think this is definitely kind of a commentary on those superhero films for sure.
I feel like whoever wrote this, they had an axe to grind with Zack Snyder, and good for them, because Zack Snyder is a terrible filmmaker.
So we start off the episode with a scene from a movie that the gang is all watching. And what is it called? Tarantuman or something along those lines, right? A very obvious parody of Spider-Man. This scene that we get here though is very kind of like classic superhero movies. It really reminds me of like the older Spider-Man movies. Really good stuff here. Trans Man is fighting with this puffer fish dude, and he's like, you'll never be accepted by society, but Tarantula Man is like,
it's the classic, we're not so different, you and I.
Right, exactly. But Tarantula Man is like, I don't care, I fight for justice, blah blah blah, right? And then he ends up defeating the enemy, and there's this really, really like overly saccharine, super cheesy scene with Tarantula Man's like helmet falling off, the people like seeing his true face, and then this like little girl comes up to him, right, and is like, I don't care what you look like, you're still a hero, you saved us, and whatever, right? And like accepting him for who he is, and it's very cheesy. Everyone applauds, right? And we pan up to the sky and we see like a vision of Tarantula Lad's parents, and yeah, it very much reminded me of like the Superman coming from a different planet kind of thing, and then also Spider-Man, and yeah, a lot of these kind of cheesy superhero movies.
Yeah, I agree though with Zoe that it looks more like a Kamen Rider inspired hero. It does have that very kind of it does have that quaint Kamen Rider style to it, especially with the outfit and the cape and the yeah,
definitely.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and like Rooster Tamer said as well, I think that there's probably a lot of anime influences in this too, right? Like apparently the spikes are coming out of Dragon Ball. I wouldn't be surprised if there was more anime references that I missed. We cut to the planters, and Anne and Mr. Boonchoi are sitting on the couch watching the TV, and I freaking love Mr. Boonchoi. Okay, he is like so quickly become one of my favorite characters. I love that he's absolutely like in tears at this movie. I can imagine that he's watched this like over a dozen times. This is his favorite movie. He's a huge nerd, we already know. So yeah, I absolutely love that this is like his favorite movie that he's showing the planters.
He's like such like they really, the majority of his screen time is just being pitiful.
Yeah.
In one way or another, like getting knocked unconscious, getting his possessions destroyed, getting the garden completely obliterated.
Yeah, I know.
Getting left behind at the balloon park.
This poor man. Yeah, he's the comic relief character. He's a gamer and a weeb. This is a hatred and oppression against gamers.
He's not just the comic relief. He's like the comic punching bag.
He is. I hope he gets a really badass moment like at the end of the season. That like kind of makes up for it. I want to acknowledge what Bort said in the chat here, that someone said that this could be a foreshadowing of when Marcy takes off the helmet and she could have developed some amphibian features. Yeah, that's what I think. I think there are definitely some foreshadowing elements in this episode, but we just don't know how it's all going to kind of fit together yet. But I think that's totally a possibility.
I hope not.
That would definitely be scary.
That would be macabre, and we've already had enough macabre for this show.
Oh my gosh. Bean, welcome. Glad that you're here. But also, if you haven't seen this episode yet, I highly recommend watching it yourself so that you don't get spoiled, because the second episode in today's discussion is a pretty big one. Yeah, punching bag character, but yeah, for sure. So this was Tarantula, the what do you call it? The world I call home, or something like that. Yeah, very cheesy. Sprig is really inspired. He's never seen anything so moving. I think this is such a great little bit for his character, because he's right in the target demographic for like this kind of movie, right? Like the young boy who gets inspired by the superhero movie. So I find it very sweet and very adorable that Sprig is like so into this movie.
But he's got the ability. He's got the ability to make it a reality.
Yeah, for
he's
sure.
A spunky little frog boy.
So he's like determined. He's like, oh, that could be me. I could like be saving humanity. And what he specifically says, right? He's like, I wish I could be lovingly embraced by all of humanity. So right away we get kind of what his motivations are, right? Like he's not interested in helping people, not interested in like saving people or bringing justice or whatever, the way that Tarantula is. He wants to be lovingly embraced by all of humanity. He wants to, get that moment at the end of the movie where all the people are like cheering and clapping for his frog face.
Yeah, I mean, they make that whole complex very, very clear, particularly with the little dialogue he has with Polly later on.
Yes, definitely. I've seen a lot of part frog Marcy after being healed. Ooh, that would be really cool. That'd be really cool. Totally valid motive. Yeah. So, Sprig's motives are questionable to say the least. And of course, continuing on her responsible streak is like, remember, dude, we're supposed to be staying low. We literally got chased by a federal agent in the last episode. We're not about to go out here and get more attention drawn to ourselves. So Anne encourages Sprig to keep a low profile. Sprig is like, it's not fair. You got to make your mark on Amphibia. And we get kind of an interesting kind of back and forth with Sprig and Anne here, right? Where Anne is like, we weren't in hiding in Amphibia, but also like they did get into trouble in Amphibia because of Anne being, openly human. So I think
they did, but they weren't at risk of being like chased by federal agents.
That is true. That is true.
And experimented on.
That is very true.
Like it was, Anne would get herself into wacky hijinks.
Yeah.
But like by virtue of what Amphibia is as a setting, like there wasn't the same kind of danger that would require her to engage in some kind of subterfuge as they've had to here.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we get that here, right? Where Anne says, we weren't in hiding in Amphibia. Don't know if anyone referenced yet the fact that Tarantalad is clearly a mix of Spider-Man. Yeah. Spider-Man Sentai. For sure. Yeah, his motives are less noble, but he did save those kids. But we do get to that, Rooster. We get to that.
Didn't result to terrorism when he got mad, which is astonishing because I think most of us resort to terrorism when we get mad.
No, just when we get grumpy.
When we get a little grumpy, it's just.
I love this little bit with Polly here. I love this like kind of recurring gag that we're getting with Polly, that she's like continuing to learn stuff on the internet and like become kind of a little bit of a genius when it comes to these things, right? So she talked about how the movie was predictable, stuffed with predictable tropes and lazy writing. I thought this was really, really funny.
She's clearly been reading Watchmen.
Oh, clearly. I actually was thinking that too. I was like, I wonder if she's referencing the Watchmen here.
She's been reading Watchmen and it's ruined every other superhero property for her, as it should. Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. And yeah, totally fly that her legs have increased her brain power somehow.
I read that as came with an extra pair of beans. And I was like, what? An extra pair of beans?
Polly's been on Reddit. Absolutely. Polly's been scrolling down the R plot holes or whatever subreddit. Lazy writing, predictable tropes. I thought that was funny. All I'm saying is you have to be pretty dense to think any of that was possible. Yeah, I really love that, Polly's kind of getting into the internet world and she's super smart. I absolutely love that. But, kind of meanwhile, Sprig is having his own little internal monologue about being a mild-mannered frog boy who seeks out justice and all that stuff, right? So I love this little montage bit that we get here. It really reminds me of the old Spider-Man movie, the old Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, where, he's kind of testing out his powers for the first time. And
intercut with him like designing the suit on paper.
Yeah. This little montage happens where he's fighting the bad guys. He's doing his little monologue on top of everything, and he's designing these costumes. Really reminded me of the old Spider-Man movie. I thought this was more or less a direct reference.
It's the cut that killed me when it does the cut from like the dark, grim lighting to what's actually going on, and he just looks like a little idiot.
Oh, poor Sprig. Yeah, that Polly walking in, he's just like standing there in his little superhero pose with his scarf blowing in the wind. It's very funny. The comedic timing on this was really good.
I love his little outfit though.
He did a good job. He did do a good job. It's very cute. Let's see. Kind of weird seeing Disney, of all places, about tropey superhero stories. I feel like it's perfect fitting, honestly. Polly walks in and she's like, yeah, you're clearly doing this to get attention, right? Sprig is like, I'm gonna save the neighborhood, and Polly's like, I think you mean you're attention seeking, right? And I love this. Polly kind of calls him out the way only a sibling would. And I love this line that Polly has too, right? Where she's like, "You're never gonna solve systemic societal problems with a sock on your head," which again is kind of like this commentary on superhero movies, right? Where like, we have these big problems, these big systemic issues that superhero movies tend to oversimplify.
It's called a plaster solution or a Band-Aid solution.
Yeah.
Which is a central theme of Watchmen, and clearly Polly has been reading Watchmen.
Clearly.
I'll die on that hill. I will accept no other interpretation.
Oh, apparently the Piccolo suit was one of the drawings Sprig did. Okay, gotcha.
Okay, this still means nothing to me though.
Yeah, there are a lot of references in the show that probably go way over my head that I miss. I love the scene of Sprig, gazing up on these pigeons, and he's going around the town trying to look for things to help out with, and he ends up finding, this lemonade stand with these kids, and there's a dude with his roller skates writing up some sort of citation. Polymandius, that's funny. Piccolo is a green dude with antennas that's asexual and agender. That's cool. That's very neat. This guy Robert Otto gets introduced to us. I love his character. He's really fun.
To call him. I'm sorry. I've been sitting on this gag all day, and you have to hear it. I'm going to make you hear it.
Please.
As I like to call him, Not So Octavius.
I saw a meme earlier that was like, "Mom, can we have Spider-Man at home?" Or like, can we get some Spider-Man? And Mom is like, no, kid, we have Spider-Man at home. This is Spider-Man at home. This is Dr. Octopus at home. He's the home version of Dr. Octopus.
Not So Octavius. I was proud of that. Way more proud of that than I should be.
That's funny. Who's the actor who plays this guy again? You told me yesterday, and I forgot.
Garrett. I was hearing his voice, and I'm like, I feel like I know that voice from somewhere. But I was genuinely surprised to see that it was Brad Garrett. But then when I went back and rewatched it, I was like, okay, I see it now. It's Brad Garrett.
Yeah. I recognized his voice right away, but I didn't connect the dots as to who he was. I only recognize him from what's the show? Everybody Loves Raymond that he was on. Raymond, yeah. He played the brother.
He's quite a prominent voice actor as well. My favorite voice performance of his is as one of the Sky Pirates in Porco Rosso. But he also plays Joe Bulo in Fargo, and he gets decapitated, and that's a fun character who gets decapitated.
That is fun. His name here is Robert Otto, which I think is Otto Octavius is.
It's Otto Octavius, but not.
Yeah, Otto Octavius is from Spider-Man, and so his name is Robert Otto, of course, which I think was very fun. He's even kind of designed a little bit like.
It's because it's Rob Ott.
Oh.
Robert Otto, Rob Ott, Robot.
Oh my god, that totally went over my head.
I read it anyway.
I like that. I like that a lot. You kids need a permit to sell goods on this street. These kids are literally just children with a lemonade stand. He made this little boy cry. I love this girl who's like, dude, we're 8. Like, this was quite funny to me. And I love these two characters as kind of like a little bit as parallels to each other, right? Like they're both kind of doing this for the same reasons. He's also kind of doing this for the glory, right, of being like kind of loved by the neighborhood and being this like safety supervisor guy. He's not really that interested in keeping the peace, right? Because otherwise he wouldn't be freaking citing 8-year-old kids for selling lemonade in their front yard. He absolutely is a Karen for sure. Zoe, he could definitely be interpreted as such. I love the line this girl has too, where she's like, "This neighborhood's finally hit rock bottom."
No return.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a lot of people saying that this bus kind of careening down the hill was a reference to a Sonic game. I'm not familiar with Sonic, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was
one of the Sonic Adventure games.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if this was a Sonic reference, because we know that Matt Bradley is a huge Sonic fan, and a lot of the crew are fans of Sonic. But this scene also reminded me of the scene from Spider-Man, right, with the train, right, that goes like careening, and like Spider-Man has to like go in front of the train to like stop the train. So I don't know if this was supposed to be a direct reference to that. But
I felt it was probably more related to Spider-Man than Sonic Adventure. I feel like the Spider-Man parallels are more clear.
Yeah. So this scene really reminded me of the train scene from Spider-Man where he stops it from like crashing. Imagine unironically finding children for something so trivial. Exactly.
I love that this lady's response to seeing a bus like launching itself towards her is to beep the horn and not to get out of the car.
I know, right? Oh my God. I mean, I guess when you're panicking, you don't really think straight, but thankfully Sprig was there.
I do feel like Sprig, and I honestly think this episode is like a genuinely pretty solid like ground level criticism of the superhero archetype or the superhero generic archetype. Of course. Because Robert Otto is like where Sprig is how do I put this in words that make sense? Sprig and Robert Otto represent like two poles of enforcing justice or enforcing law. Sprig is a vigilante, and Robert Otto is like 100% authoritarian.
Yes, part of the system.
And neither of them work.
Yes, yeah, I love that. This episode. See, there's a lot to say about this episode. We're getting pretty deep in here.
I see. Watchmen is always fresh in my mind, so it's just everywhere I go.
The car wasn't insured. She might as well be gone with it. That's funny. Yes, we get Dollar Store Gwen Stacy here. We have Gwen Stacy at home instead of getting Gwen Stacy from the drive-thru. But also, I think she's supposed to be. Her name is like
Mary Jane.
Mary Jo.
Like Mary Jo or something. Yeah.
Oh no, it's Molly Jo. Her name is Molly Jo. That's what it is. Yeah. So I think she's supposed to be kind of a mashup of like Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane.
She's got the Gwen Stacy hair.
Yeah. But Molly Jo seems to. Yeah, be very much on the nose of Mary Jane reference, right?
Hopefully she doesn't die horribly.
Oh, don't say that. We do also find out that she is Robert Otto's granddaughter, right? So there is like a connection there. He does want to like genuinely keep her safe. This is a cute moment too, right? Where she like thanks Frogman and they shake hands and like the hands get stuck. Isn't that a Spider-Man thing too? Doesn't that happen at some point? I don't know.
Yeah, that happens in that's Into the Spider-Verse when he accidentally gets his hand stuck in her hair.
That's right. Yeah. I love that. And Sprig is getting his like moment of glory, right, where the people are cheering for him, and this plants the seeds in Robert Otto for his own jealousy and his own want for revenge, right? So we get this cute montage of Sprig doing a bunch of good deeds around town. He saves a cat, he gets on the news, he goes viral. I love this like Frogman, little montage that we get.
He's in Conan. He's on Conan.
He's on Conan O'Brien. Yeah, these references are so great, right? Like Frogman saves bank, Frogman saves entertainment, Frogman saves old people, and yeah, we get this Conan O'Brien thumbnail where he's being interviewed. So yeah, he's gotten really big in a short amount of time. I wanted to pause on this frame too because you pointed this out as one of your favorite jokes. As Polly is scrolling on the computer, we see on the screen chicken stock plummets. I thought that was also very funny.
What is it I said to you? I said I liked it because it's cheap, nasty wordplay.
Yes.
And I like cheap, nasty wordplay.
Yeah.
I'm nothing but cheap, nasty wordplay.
Polly would become a crypto bro, investing in chicken stock coin. Yeah, that is quite a funny joke, right? But this leads to Anne figuring out what Sprig has been up to, right? This is a detail that I missed the first time I watched the episode, that the junkyard actually apparently belongs to Otto. It's Otto's auto junk. So I think this is his junkyard.
His name on it.
Yeah.
And that's where the robot thing got yeeted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is Robert Otto's junkyard. He's standing here, he's on his phone kind of scrolling. I love the stuff that he sees on his phone too, right? He's reading this article, greatest neighborhood hero of all time, Los Angeles is agog man for Frogman. And who could blame anyone for loving this little weirdo? He's pink as a pig, built like an 8-year-old, has a tongue that makes us sick, And yet this amphibious dynamo has captured the heart of every Angelino with his slimy charms. I absolutely love the little, visual gags that we get in this bit too, right? Robert Otto is very angry. He's scrolling through Instagram. These people are posting about Frogman. They love Frogman. And then we get a really funny meme reference here too with the what is this meme called? The jealous boyfriend or the jealous girlfriend?
The jealous girlfriend.
Yeah, with this dude looking back at the girl with Sprig's Frogman's face on it, and then the girlfriend has Robert Otto's face on it.
The face he makes when he's looking just like straight down at the phone in rage, with his face mere inches from the screen, craning his neck.
Yeah.
Is one of the best images in the show.
Oh, yeah. The expression is just so great. I love that this is on Dimger, too, which is a reference to Imgur. Yeah, absolutely. Gold star. The meme reference was absolutely hilarious. This is how I scroll Twitter. Yeah, absolutely. Bored.
I mean, if anybody doesn't scroll through Twitter like that, then I'd be offended.
I bet someone
Twitter's so full of things that make me angry, just viscerally furious.
Morgan says someone made a Frogman fan cam. Sorry, I think that would be really funny too. I totally agree, Tom, that these expressions that he has, where he's like angrily looking at the phone, are hilarious. They're so good. I've been taking care of this neighborhood for years, and what do I get, right? He's really, the jealousy and the rage has really overcome him. And of course, in his eye, the glint, the light that flashes in his eye leads him to the robot arm that got left here in one of the previous episodes by Cloakbot, right? Rip in peace. I miss you every day, Cloakbot.
Rest in spaghetti, never forgetty.
Never forgetty. More foreshadowing for Anne's arm. Oh my gosh, Zoe, don't say that.
I have to acknowledge, before we move on too quickly, I do have to acknowledge Rooster's comment that him going into a murderous rage after seeing some negative memes about him is very Homelander. That is a very Homelander thing to do.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. Frogman for clear skin. That's funny. Otto is pretty quickly able to get a handle on how this arm works. He's able to punch a car, and it's like a perfect fit for him. And I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah.
I don't want to think too hard about how this arm works. If he can just like put his arm into it. It's like, I guess that works then.
Yeah. I don't want to think too much about it, but it really did remind me also of the scene in Spider-Man where, Dr. Octopus is trying his arms on and all that stuff. So
but Dr. Octopus, like, he has a whole like intricate system, like it connects to his central nervous system.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously this is very simple. Yeah, I don't know how he's maneuvering it exactly, Morgan, but I think we're just supposed to assume that it's easy to figure out. It just works.
Just don't think about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like Zoe said, it just works. Sprig is like, yes, Adorby. He's getting like absolutely showered in gifts. This was one of my favorite gags in this episode, was this game console that seems to be being gifted to Sprig that looks like a pyramid. The game pyramid. I thought this was hilarious. He's getting a cat. He's getting a diamond ring, right? Like, the people are just absolutely adoring him. They give him like a pizza. This guy kind of looks like Mario. Just really, really funny little references here. Otto shows up.
Why did they make that man look like Mario? I just don't get it. That is the closest we've come. That is the closest we've come to Bob Hoskins being in this show.
Oh my god, you're so right. He even has like a T on his hat, which I think is supposed to be like the M. This straight up looks like Mario.
Do we know what his name is? Did he say his name?
I don't think
he speculate.
I think we have to give him a name.
Maybe his name is Tom, because the creators of Amphibia watched this stream and they heard me talking about Bob Hoskins.
Oh my God, that's absolutely what this reference is. That's my
That's
headcanon now.
100% without, like, there's absolutely no other explanation for any of this. None at all.
His name is Tario. That's funny.
He will be voiced by Chris Pratt in the movie,
Yes,
though.
yes, he will be voiced by Chris Pratt. Yeah, there was Game Sphere, now Game Pyramid, Hyrule. I thought that was funny. Yeah, the pizza's pretty abysmal too. If we take a closer look at it, it has like sushi and like sprinkles or something on it. It's pretty buck wild.
That does sound like a horrible pizza. I've got nothing else to say about that, but that does sound like a horrible pizza. Just a disaster pizza.
Rooster Tamer, yeah, bro, you're literally just part of the homeowners association. Like no one takes you seriously. That's funny. So yeah, I love the line that Sprig has too, where he's like, "Huh, Robert Otto. He said that he was gonna come back and enact revenge on me. Wonder what he's doing here." And then they end up having a fight, right? Because Robert Otto's jealousy has just completely overcome him. People are going to love me more, Sprig says, and Robert's like, this is not just a popularity contest, but it's a fight for the soul of the city, right? They're very overdramatic. And right away, we're getting the ignoring the property damage, right? He's absolutely destroying this car. They're fighting all over the streets, and like the poles end up, crashing down. The buildings end up getting damaged. All this crazy stuff, right? As they're continuing to fight, and Sprig is like swinging all over the place. So yeah, it reminds me of like a superhero movie, but with the kind of added commentary of like, hey, check out all this freaking property damage, right? I really loved this bit during their battle. This was probably my favorite sequence in the entire battle, where they're both kind of running up the building, and Sprig is like, Spider-Man running up the building with like being stuck to the side of the wall, and Robert Otto is like using the arm to lift himself up. I that really tickled me for some reason. That was my favorite part of this.
I just like them giving themselves a physical injury while trying to do a battle.
Yeah, that little ow, ow, ow as they like kick each other too is really, really funny and cute. They continue to destroy the city all around, and we see Mary Jo walking out of a coffee shop, and she gets almost hit by a car that's flying out. She is witness to this battle and is absolutely aghast, right? She's
it's
like,
the guy, the dude with the TV.
oh yeah, the engaged guy. He shows up for a bit. I'm not going to go back, but yeah, he showed up for a bit too. So we are seeing the same background characters again too, which is fun.
I love him. I want to see more of him. I demand a spin-off show with those two being a cute little couple.
Oh my god, yes, please. Yeah, the clown face guy. Sprig climbing up the tree reminds me of a tree frog. Yeah, that's Naruto running up the building. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just in time, they see the light pole that's about to fall on Mary Jo, and Sprig is quick enough to move her out of the way. And, Robert Otto actually has a moment of like gratitude here, right? Where he's like, wow, thank you. Good one, Frogman. He's not like jealous or petty in that moment, because he does genuinely care about his granddaughter. So I liked that. I like that he does have that sincerity to him instead of just wanting to be kind of a neighborhood hero or whatever.
He belongs in jail, though.
He does belong in jail. Mary Jo tells Sprig off for being a jerk, for, causing all this damage. Sprig at first tries to defend himself. He's like, no, I'm not a jerk. I'm the defender of justice, right? And Mary Jo points out the catastrophic damage that the battle has caused, right? The car in the freaking building, the crash on the street, the broken fire hydrant. Absolute chaos. And Mary Jo points out, yeah, your battle could have really hurt someone. And all you guys were doing it for was for attention, right? This like flashy battle.
I see some commentary in the chat about Sprig just trying to not get killed while Otto is destroying stuff. Yeah. I have a couple of things to say that. First of all, Sprig does have a responsibility to contain that fight, but also he was actively goading him on.
Yep.
And playing a game of evasion the whole time.
Yep.
So it's not like he's guilt-free here.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think, you guys have some good points that it was mostly Robert Otto who caused the damage and Sprig was just trying to like evade. But yeah, he was absolutely goading and he was absolutely
He's going like,
pushing.
"Oh, you can't catch me, you can't hit me." Like he's goading the
Exactly.
guy on. Like,
Exactly.
he could have taken the fight elsewhere. He could have like there are so many things he could have done.
Yeah.
We even get a shot of like a perfectly deserted area in the background when they do the little kick.
Yeah. 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 So I think
Sprig isn't completely absolved of responsibility here.
yeah, I agree. And I think that the point is supposed to be that, yeah, they it is both of their fault, right? Maybe a little more Robert Otto's, but it is at the end of the day, both of them who have to take responsibility for it. And I do like too that we do have this little bit of a montage sequence after this too, where they decide that they are going to right their wrongs, right? They are going to clean up the mess that they made. And Sprig has this acknowledgement here where like he says, yes, it was selfish and you're right. And I was just seeking attention, right? Like I feel like this is a nice kind of like conclusion, maybe not full conclusion, but like it is kind of a point in Sprig's arc that is pretty significant in my opinion, because we've seen him, fight for attention in previous seasons and it always just kind of ended with that. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I guess she doesn't like me, or yeah, she likes me, Mrs. Croker, or whatever, right? And it never really got any kind of like lesson learned from Sprig. But I think this is the episode where he is finally internalizing that lesson of I need to do things for the greater good instead of for my own selfish reasons, right?
He got to go home and read Watchmen.
He does. He's got to read Watchmen. Let's see. Yeah, I think his tongue is pretty strong. I think that's fair to say.
It does come from a place where there's a certain expectation that people have. I know that people have had this same debate over the Zack Snyder films. And people have said the exact same thing about Man of Steel. We're like, oh, Superman's, he was just evading. It's like, yeah, he makes no attempt though to like contain collateral damage at all.
We get another like moment where they stick to each other and it's very cute and wholesome, right? I love this moment too at the end here, right? Where Mary Jo's like, wait, can I see your face? And Sprig's like, no, it'll give you nightmares and your nightmares will throw up. Like, I just thought that was really cute and funny. And yeah, kind of shows a little bit about the lesson that he learned, right? Because, at the end of the Tarantalad movie, he did show his face and he was loved and accepted for it. And that was the moment that Sprig was trying to recreate, right? And recapture. And this could have been that moment for him where he shows his face and he's loved and accepted by humanity. But he has internalized this lesson at this point that the fight isn't about the glory. It's about doing the right thing and doing good, right? So I like that he kind of internalizes that here by saying, no, I will not show you my face. I thought that was sweet. Let's see. Glad that Otto got arrested, but not jazzed about the government having Cloakbot's arm. That's a good point, Rooster. I didn't even think about that.
Oh God, yeah, I didn't think about that either.
Yeah, I wonder if that's gonna come back in some way. I really am kind of curious about that. Ivy's gonna get jealous. Yeah, I did see a couple fan arts of that, and I think that's it. But yeah, I think Molly Jo is just supposed to kind of be a reference.
She's a fangirl.
Yeah, she's a fangirl. Yeah.
I don't think their relationship is meant to be romantic in nature. I do love this bit at the end. Where it's like, you're definitely under arrest.
Yeah, and Robert Otto's just like, fair enough.
Fair enough.
That was funny. I did enjoy that. That was really good. And I want to put some attention on this scene because I think this is going to be important as we go into our discussion of the next episode. But I really want to put some attention on this scene and this theme that I'm seeing kind of recur with different episodes in the show. But, Sprig comes back, right? And Anne, as we saw, found out about his shenanigans and got really upset with him. And she does kind of the classic parent thing, right? Where she's like waiting in the dark for him to come home to tell him off. And what I really...
How long do you think she's been waiting there?
Yeah, she's just sitting there like holding the flashlight, like waiting for Sprig to come back. And I really loved this moment because this is something that we've seen before, right? Where Anne is ready to tell Sprig off. She's like, you really could have put us all in danger. You could have gotten into really big trouble. And Sprig immediately acknowledges that, right? Like he has actually learned his lesson already through the faults and mistakes that he has made, right? So he acknowledges that. He's like, yeah, I understand that, I was just trying to get attention, but it's all done now. It ended up doing more harm than good. And he has like sincerely learned a lesson and like internalized it, right? And Anne, even though she was ready to tell Sprig off, she acknowledges, right? She can see that Sprig has already learned his lesson and she doesn't tell him off, right? She doesn't yell at him. She doesn't get angry or upset with him. She sees that he has learned his lesson and says, it looks like you've had a time of it already, and actually like kind of turns a little bit and says like, I have to admit, it was pretty cool, right? Like, so this is a recurring thing I'm seeing in this show where characters will learn a lesson of some kind, and where normally they might get scolded or told off by it by like a parent or by an authority figure. If the character seems to have like learned the lesson and internalized it already, then the characters will kind of like forego the scolding. And this moment also reminded me of the episode in season 2 where they're like Sprig and Polly take over the wagon to go back to Wortwood while Anne and Hop Hop are asleep, and they get chased by the ghost, right? And at the end of it, Hop Hop and Anne are like really upset with Sprig and Polly for taking the wagon, and they're like ready to tell them off, but then they see, how spooked they are and how freaked out they are by like the ghost and the things that they saw, that Hop Hop and Anne were like, okay, they obviously learned their lesson. We don't need to tell them off, right? And the reason I am bringing this up, and the reason that I'm noticing that this is like a recurring theme in this show, is I think that this is going to be an important element for Marcy's kind of character arc and redemption as she continues on in season 3. And I do want to talk more about that as we get to the end of the next episode, but I did want to just acknowledge that this is a recurring theme that I'm noticing in this show.
Isn't it nice when characters are mentally healthy
and like can
stable.
Communicate well?
Love it when that happens.
Love it when that happens. Absolutely. Otto's going to get arrested and immediately captured and interrogated by the FBI. Yeah, I'm wondering if that's going to happen, Rooster. I really am curious if Otto is going to come back or not. Yes, the flagon. I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is just a recurring theme that I'm noticing in this episode. Or in this show, rather. So I think that it's going to come into play with other characters as well. Any other thoughts on this episode, Tom, before we take a quick little break before we move on to the next episode? Oh, we get this last gag here, right, where Sprig admits that he cut up Anne's clothes and she gets upset, which is kind of a funny little gag to end on. Yes, drink water, everyone. Stay hydrated. Lots of hydrates in the chat. Yes, we got to stay hydrated for how much we're gonna be crying during this next episode. Did you cry during this episode, Tom? I definitely was shocked. I cried when I rewatched it, but I didn't cry the first time I watched it.
Yeah, no, I didn't cry. I didn't cry on the rewatch either. I wouldn't say I was like super. I guess I was a little shocked.
Yeah,
I feel like I was less shocked than everybody else on the planet.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, people watched this and they went absolutely nuts. They went berserk.
Yeah.
And in the context of what this show is, I guess it was a little shocking.
Yeah.
It was a little near the knuckle for what this show is.
Yeah.
But I guess, I don't know. I've seen worse.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know if I'm inflating movies like The Secret of Nim and Watership Down in my head, but I remember those being way worse.
Sure. But I mean, for this show, this was definitely shocking.
This was pretty shocking. It kind of... I'm comfortable in the knowledge that Marcy is not going to die. Like, Marcy is going to be fine in the end.
I think that's fair.
It's going to come to a head with them fighting her and helping set her free. And it's going to be great and everyone's going to have a great time.
Yeah.
If I were a little less certain of that, I feel like I'd find it more affecting.
Sure. Morgan was frozen in fear. I definitely had that reaction too. Gold Star Farrell, this episode broke me. Haven't cried this hard in a long while. I feel that. Morgan literally couldn't move. I feel that. A couple people didn't cry because you all are super strong badasses, I guess. Yeah, Shia, I also had to remind myself that this was a kid's show for sure. Yeah, so I want to get into my predictions about what's going to happen to Marcy from this point forward when we get to the end of the episode, because I want to kind of tag it on to what I was talking about at the end of Spider Sprig episode, but we'll get there when we get there. Marcy's a big comfort character for me. Hearing her scream shook me to my core. Yeah, the screaming at the end and the way that scene played out was definitely shocking.
That's the thing we talked about behind the scenes, was like it's more in the execution than the content, and having her like begging and screaming viscerally was just horrifying.
That was brutal. That was pretty brutal.
Yeah, just horrifying. It's not the most shocking thing I've seen, but it was definitely shocking.
Yeah. I also want to just acknowledge how amazing the writing is in this episode. Like, this episode, I had to like remind myself. I was like, holy crap, this was an 11-minute episode. So much happened in this episode, and like the writing in this episode was so tight, so well put together, and I'm gonna keep saying that throughout the entire stream. But this is kind of the first acknowledgement I want to make. I love this establishing shot that we get right at the beginning. This first thing that we see here are these like birds, right? And they've got these like bug eyes. So right away we know we're back in Amphibia, and I really love like that's the way that we're establishing that. You know, we got these seagull bugs and we pan down and we're back in Amphibia, right? Instead of on Earth. And we see Marcy. And again, this is kind of just like reminding the audience, right? Like, oh, hey, you guys remember Marcy? And we get this kind of flashback, right, where she's in Utopia for the first time. And Lady Olivia is showing her the land. And she, you know, they have a cute moment where Olivia's like, I almost had the same reaction, right? Where Marcy's like freaking out about the bug seagulls, right? And it's really, really sweet. And we get this backstory a little bit from Lady Olivia too, right? So a lot of things are kind of accomplished in this scene, right? We're establishing we're back in Amphibia. We're remembering where Marcy kind of started off on this adventure. We're getting Lady Olivia's backstory here, right? She's a descendant of a long line of like royal newts that made this like sacred vow to protect the land and the wildlife and the animals. I really love that we got this backstory from Lady Olivia, because this was kind of what I was speculating on when it came to like where Olivia's loyalties were going to lie, because it does very much seem, even though throughout the second season when we saw her interactions with Andreas, you know, she was very like proper. She was all about like procedure. She was all about like, you know, respecting the king. And so it was kind of questionable, right? Like, oh, is she loyal to Andreas, or like where do her loyalties lie exactly? And this scene really like does
more loyal to like a concept.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I really love that this scene does kind of just confirm that for us. Like she is dedicated to the land of Amphibia, the people of Amphibia, the wildlife, and not necessarily to Andreas, right? Which is what leads her to end up betraying him in this episode. So I really love that we got that confirmation right at the top of the episode here.
It's interesting that she comes from a long line of royal newts, because that sounds like a royal newtsance.
Oh my gosh. Olivia sees Marcy as a daughter. Yeah, I really do think that there is a little bit of like a familiar relationship kind of between the two of them. I like that a lot as well.
Royal newtsance.
More Tom ... in the chat.
This is why chicken stock plummets was my favorite joke.
Oh my gosh, you are very silly. This is a sweet moment from Marcy, right, where she's got the stars in her eyes. She's dedicated to helping out the land of Amphibia as well, because they took care of her and helped her fix her up. And so she's going to do her best to take care of the land as well. You know, I love this cut that we get to, right? You know, we get this establishing shot of the land of Amphibia. It's obviously very colorful, very green. And then we get this like really hard cut to the present day, right? Where Andreas is essentially performing eco-terrorism on the land. These machines are like literally fracking stuff out of the ground. There's like smog coming out of everything. It's like polluting the air. I thought this was a really kind of nice commentary on, you know, climate change and what we're going through right now on Earth as well. But yeah, the fact that this is now happening in Amphibia is really heartbreaking.
I'm having to really bite my lip on not making a RuPaul related joke there.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, and yeah, I'm not gonna say too much other than the fact that this show seems to be taking a stance on fracking, and they also happen to have a cast member who enjoys fracking. So yeah, take with that what you will. I'm not gonna get too deep into that. Yeah, he did this in a week, Fly. That's a good point, that he is ready to absolutely destroy this world. And I want to make a note on that later as well too. Lady Olivia sees this and she's absolutely upset. She's really disappointed. Oh, I forgot to tell the chat that I'm actually I have the script for this episode pulled up as well, because I there was a lot of important stuff here and I didn't want to miss anything. So I'm gonna put the link. I'm gonna pull that up. I'm gonna put the link to the script in the chat. So if any of you wanna follow along with us, you can do that.
I'm sorry, I should have had the script up earlier, but I've just been looking at pictures of puppos.
That's okay. Okay, so the frog bot shows up, right, to summon Lady Olivia to the king, and she's obviously nervous. And apparently in this episode, the frog bot was voiced by Matt Braley. Apparently it's voiced by someone else usually, but this frog was voiced by Matt Braley.
That's cute.
It is cute. General Yunan is here too, and she's like, he summoned you too. Do you know what this is about? Lady Olivia says, no, but it's been weeks since the planter has disappeared, right? And I wonder what's keeping him. And then we get this really creepy scene, right, where the two of them peek in the door and we see Andreas like talking to himself, right? And he's like not talking to anyone in particular. We don't see another person in the room, and even when we cut to the shot of his face, like we don't see who he's talking to, right? We find out by the end of the episode.
It's the drape.
Yes,
there's like a drape on the wall with the face of the weird.
Dude. That's true.
Which I presumed he was like sort of like talking to that, not like a drape sword. It's like a shield. There's a thing on the wall.
Yeah, but we find out at the end of that episode like who he's talking to, right? But here it's like kind of a mystery, and we're not sure. It's really creepy, really, really unsettling.
Unsettling? No, really. I thought this episode was a hoot.
Yeah, no, it's pretty
fun romp.
Pretty freaky in my onion. Just my onion. Sorry, I'm trying to make it so that I can see the chat and the script at the same time. There we go. That kind of works. Maybe they can communicate telepathically. Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too, because we find out later in the episode that this thing is called the core. I think that the core is somehow, attached to Andreas's crown in some way, so maybe like able to communicate telepathically that way. Obviously talking to Bob Hoskins, clearly, according to Morgan.
Obviously. I didn't think that was under question for even a moment. We haven't heard this thing's voice. We've heard it like sort of like channeled through Marcy's voice.
Yeah.
So could be Bob Hoskins.
Could be. He doesn't even wait to get the other words and drain them. You'd think that he'd do that to the other worlds. Yeah. That's something that's interesting, Rooster. I wanted to draw some attention in particular to King Andreas's line here, right? Because there's something that was going on in this episode that raised a lot of questions for me. And the main question that I had was, how honest is Andreas being, right? Or like how intentional is he being as well? Those were kind of my questions, right? Because we get this line from Andreas where he's talking to the core. He's saying things are progressing as fast as they can. Yes, I know, but the device hasn't even been tested yet. And so I think that the device he's talking about here is the thing, the helmet that Marcy ends up wearing at the end of the episode to allow her to be the host for the core. And Andreas says, surely we should try to test it on someone else first, right? So there is this like protectiveness of Marcy that's like kind of here. And I don't know how authentic it is. I don't know how much he really does care or want to protect Marcy. Obviously, it's not enough, and he does seem to be somewhat frightened of the core too. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this scene. So I thought that that was really interesting, and I'm really kind of questioning Andreas's kind of intentions here. What did you think about this, Tom?
I think that what he's saying here is authentic because when it happens, you do get that shot where he like looks away, like it pains
Yeah,
him to see it. I think he genuinely does care, but I think that care is twisted and bastardized. You know, it's not the typical kind of affection a person would have if they were, you know, not a massive evil Newt King
yeah,
who'd been alive for hundreds of years. It
yeah,
is twisted. Like we know he's perfectly willing. Like he was aware he could save her, but he was still willing to risk killing her. He was still willing to do
yeah,
physical harm to her.
yeah, absolutely.
It's a twisted thing. Like he's
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm curious as to how much of Andres his intentions of like conquering other worlds is like truly his own desire, right? Because yeah, the little pieces of fear that we got from Andreas in this episode were really interesting to me.
yeah.
Um, let's see. Yeah, thanks Shia for dropping the links and everything. And Tom does have a new video on the way, so if you're not subscribed yet, you absolutely should be.
I do. I've been busting my ass over it.
It's going to be really good. I'm really excited for it. Yeah, I wonder who he was considering to test it on. Yeah, I don't know if he had anyone in mind in particular, but I think that he was genuinely trying to be protective over Marcy.
The idea that
Uh,
they were kind of like cultivating her from the start.
yeah, yeah, and we'll get to the core, and I have some things to say about that as we get there. I see some comments in the chat about it already, but so King Andreas calls in Olivia and Yunan, and they are obviously very nervous. They're pretty scared to approach him, and he tells them that they're promoted, right? And he has this really interesting line here where he says, "It's time to sap this pitiful mud bowl of its remaining resources." And you know, like we were kind of talking about earlier, there's this idea where you know he's kind of ready to move on from Amphibia. He's like, it's time to, you know, suck up all the resources that this place has left because like we're not coming back, right? Like that's kind of the vibe that I got from this. What did you think of that line?
That is very reminiscent of Horde Prime
Mm.
in She-Ra, which means nothing to you because you haven't seen She-Ra, and you should really watch She-Ra. But people who have
Yes, I
seen
know.
She-Ra will probably agree. That whole thing of just like going to planets, harvesting them, and just like bouncing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Andres probably was just gonna test it on a random frog. I think that's true. This is kind of a funny little moment that we get here with Andres too, right? Where he says not only is he going to sap all the resources, he tells Yunan to get the frogs to work in the factories, right? So he's pretty much trying to get some labor going on here too, right? Which is pretty nefarious. And at first he's like, give them a stern talking to, right? If they don't agree. And there's this kind of funny beat where Olivia and Yunan are like, okay, that's not too bad. And then he's like, just kidding, terminate them, right?
Yeah, they're dancing around using the word kill.
Yep. Yep.
They're doing everything they can to keep this technically kid friendly.
There was something about this like moment too. I don't know what it was. I'm trying to pause on the frame, but there was something about this frame where Andreas was like, just kidding, and he's like kind of smiling that reminded me of like Futurama for some reason. Like this kind of
I was thinking that throughout this whole episode, it felt very stylistically reminiscent of Matt Groening's style.
yeah,
But
I'm
I was
glad.
thinking more specifically with Yunan, because Yunan pulls some faces, like when she goes ooh and
Oh
like
yeah,
her
yeah.
lips purse to the front of her face. That feels very Matt Groening.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't the only one who got that vibe. But yeah, like with this frame in particular, like there was something Futurama-y about it to me, and I'm glad that I wasn't the only one who got that because there was something about it that reminded me of yeah, Matt
I
Groening or
think
like that Futurama energy.
I think the traces of Matt Groening are all over this show in the
Oh,
way they like
absolutely.
draw lines and the three-fingered hands and stuff, and you know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's everywhere.
Totally. Rooster
God, it's
Tamer.
everywhere.
Rooster Tamer says, like, yeah, dude, I'm not a fan of Earth, but that's your home planet. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Marcy's voice at the end reminded me of a chipped Catra. That's interesting.
Yes, which is something you don't know anything about.
I don't, unfortunately.
But I do agree. They do a similar thing with Catra, only less horrid. It's still pretty creepy, but it's less like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to do any spoilers though. You really got to watch She-Ra. Watch She-Ra.
I will
criminal.
watch it. I will watch it. I promise. And we'll do some discussion streams in the future on it too.
We should.
Reminds me of the diamonds from Steven Universe. Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. The way that they kind of like totally sapped the planets that they took over.
Yeah. There's a lot of that in there as well.
Yeah, I agree, Fly, that I don't think employing the frogs is exactly what Andrews is going for here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rooster Tamer says Amphibia is Simpsons-esque. Yeah, I totally get those vibes for sure. Okay, moving on. Yeah, definitely got the Futurama Matt Groening vibes from this episode for sure. I think it's something to do with like the mix of like talking about death in a very silly way. I don't know, like just kind of reminds me of that. We get this scene with Olivia and Yunan, right, where Olivia is really upset. She's like remembering the vow of her mother, and she says, I made a sacred vow. I cannot continue to stand idly by, right? So this is really where her loyalty becomes clear. Her loyalty is to Amphibia and the land, and not necessarily to Andreas and the king or the kingdom. So I love that this is now official. It's established that this is where Olivia's motivations are. And then I love this little bit from Yunan too, where at first we get kind of a fake out, right? Where we think that she's upset with her. Maybe she's gonna like tell her off. But instead she picks her up and goes around the corner and is like, I insist if you're going to talk treason, we do it in private, right? And there's a very gay moment here where where Olivia is quite surprised at what Yunan's reaction was. And yeah, I love these two. I love the chemistry these two have. And I absolutely ship them.
They're so gay.
They're so gay. They're so gay.
They are so good at Yu-Gi-Oh!
And then they kiss. Exactly. So exactly.
And that's the rest of the episode. It's just like 10 minutes of makeout between a couple of newts, and it's like, okay.
I thought we were gonna get Marcy in this episode, but I'm fine with this too.
Yeah, we were all very surprised.
I like that we also get kind of Yunan's motivation in this next line too, right? Where she's like, "You're dang right that he's gone too far. Based off of what we just witnessed, he's losing it, and I will not serve a mad king." Right? So we get Yunan's loyalties kind of spelled out here too, right? Again, her loyalty is to the kingdom and to the people of the world, and not necessarily to Andreas himself. So I love that this gets kind of established here. Agreed. We can't take him down alone. We need someone clever, someone who understands strategy, is what Olivia says here, right? Someone like Marcy Wu. And I do like that Yunan is a little taken aback by this comment, right? She has a lot less experience and interactions with the human girls as Lady Olivia did with Marcy. What she has seen, right? She saw Sasha try to take over the kingdom with Grime. She saw Marcy betray her friends in true colors. So Yunan has this line here where she's like, in case you haven't noticed, they're all scheming backstabbers, which I think is quite rich considering that Andreas literally stabbed Marcy's back.
Yeah, and also they're currently planning to scheme and backstab. That's literally what they're doing right now.
That's true. That is true. That's true. Yes, gay newts, absolutely. They definitely kiss. Vigorous makeout session. Oh, that's funny. Olivia says that we can trust Marcy, and she's the only one who ever defeated King Andreas on Flipwort. Which I like that this kind of comes back later in the episode too, right? Where this idea that Marcy is so intelligent, she's so good at strategy, and she was able to actually defeat Andreas in Flipwort, aka chess. And I like that this was
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually, yeah, exactly. But I like that this was genuine again from Andreas, right? I feel like we got a lot of truth and a lot of honesty from Andreas in this episode. We find out later that he did genuinely lose to Flipwort to her, and it wasn't necessarily that he was throwing the games or whatever to win her trust, right? He did genuinely lose to Marcy and Flipwort. So I thought that was an interesting detail.
He laid down a face down and he activated the face down, and it was magic cylinder, and he lost, and it was really embarrassing for him.
Yeah. This is again one of those Futurama Matt Groening-esque moments that made me definitely laugh out loud. I think this moment really reminded me of Fry. Like, it gave me Fry energy, where Yunan is like oh, I'm plenty smart, and then her knives go off and she's like, whoa, did you see that? Nearly took my head off.
And the little cheek lines are very
yes,
very Philip J. Fry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I totally got Fry vibes from Yunan here. Like, she's such a silly little himbo. I absolutely love her. Fellas, is it gay to plan treason with your friend? Yes, absolutely. Yes. 100%.
That's one of the first symptoms of gay.
Yunan is a female himbo. I totally agree. Marcy has probably played grand strategy games for years. Yeah, definitely. Yunan reminds me of Scorpia, but that reference means nothing to me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know that's She-Ra.
Scorpia is also a she-himbo.
Good.
Scorpia is absolutely S tier. Scorpia is absolutely fantastic. When you watch She-Ra, you're going to meet Scorpia, and you're going to be like, this is the best character ever written of all time.
Great, I'm excited. Yunan does admit that they do need Marcy. Olivia's like, glad to hear it. Yunan explains she's being held under the castle. No one's allowed down there. And there's a rumor that she's being guarded by a horrible monster. And again, I really love the dynamic between Olivia and Yunan here, right? Olivia is really determined to do her own, sacred vow to protect Amphibia. And she's very cutely goading Yunan along here as she's like, oh, don't tell me that the great General Yunan is afraid of some ridiculous rumors and a scary monster, right? She kind of teases her, and it's quite funny. I enjoy this a lot. And Yunan is like, nope, I know what you're doing, and it's working, right? Like, she fully acknowledges exactly what Olivia is doing, and she's like, okay, lead the way.
I'm just here for them. I'm here for their relationship. I'm here for their chemistry.
Yeah, I totally agree, Morgan. They're absolutely flirting. So they try to sneak past the robots to get down to Marcy, and we get this really great moment from Yunan where she, Yunan, we've seen her be kind of skilled in this way before. So I love that this is like a recurring thing with her. Like, she is good at using her claws and, getting around and avoiding enemies and fighting enemies if she needs to, right? But I
have
really
to say, this is like my one complaint about this episode.
Yeah.
They're all about subterfuge until it comes to talking. And then they talk at what could be described as above average kind of normal room level audio. They're shouting in places, and it's like, guys, you're meant to be keeping a low profile. Please whisper a little. I feel a lot better.
Oh my gosh.
If you would just keep it down a little. It's my one complaint.
That's funny. That's really funny.
I know they probably thought they couldn't record the audio for 80% of an episode as whispers.
Yeah.
But they could have I don't know. It bothered me a little.
I get that. I love Zoe's reference to Spider Yunan, because yes, we got Spider Sprig in the last episode. Now we get Spider Yunan. And yeah, totally. Yunan could have just carried Olivia the whole way. I paused on this frame because I just wanted to acknowledge the other gay moment. I'm like, these two are so gay. These two are so in love with each other. I love it so much.
They're not in love with each other yet.
But they're falling for each other in this episode.
Love is a strong word, and we've got to let it burgeon.
They sneak into the bedroom, right, that Marcy was actually staying in, and we saw this kind of trapdoor in the sleepover episode, right, in season 2. And Yunan has a line where she's like, well, ominous, right? After you. And before they go down, though, Yunan grabs Marcy's crossbow. This is again one of those moments where I just have to like give so much credit to the writing of this episode and how tight that this episode is, right? Because again, this crossbow does come into play later in the episode, and Yunan grabbing it here is just such a quick moment, but it ends up being really important later on, right? So yeah, just again, this episode is so tightly written, really well done. I'm just gonna keep saying that as we continue on. It's really, really, really good. So they end up sneaking down. Yunan asks Olivia, right, like, have you ever been down here? And, Olivia explains that even though this was a forbidden place, she did sneak down here when she was younger, right? Which I thought was an interesting little character detail for her, right? Like she does remain loyal. She does follow orders. She is very proper in that way. But even as a young girl, she was still sneaking down here. She was kind of curious as to what was going on down here. So I thought that was an interesting little character detail from her.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. I hope we get to see some of those childhood scenes that we only hear about.
Oh, that would be so great. That would be so great. We see the return of the Moss Man, right? We saw this Moss Man a couple times already in this show, and there's a cute moment here where the Moss Man gives Yunan a little flower, and
I love him.
Yeah, I love this scene. This is just so sweet and so also visually beautiful. I think the design of the Moss Man is like brilliant. I love his design. And I wanted to draw some attention to this moment in particular because, even though there's so much that's happening in this episode, one of the things that is happening is Olivia and Yunan's own character growth, right? We finally get this like rebellious side coming out of Olivia, and Yunan, we've like seen her established in the show as kind of a lone wolf, in the episode that she was introduced in, Grime asks her where her army is, and she's like, they would only slow me down, right? So Yunan is very much a lone wolf, not really a team player. So I think that this episode also kind of starts her off on her own character arc of learning how to become like a team player and like getting help and helping out other people as well. And I feel like this moment with the Moss Man is kind of like that first opening moment for Yunan, where she's like now able to open herself up to not only accepting help from others, but helping out others and being a team player. And I just feel like this moment is very significant for that reason. Because, there's so much that happens in this episode. I kind of was asking myself, I was like, why is that moment here when there's like so much happening in this episode? And yeah, the more I was thinking about it, the more I was thinking like, this is a Yunan moment. This is for her to open up a little more.
I get the impression that with how many, just like the sheer number of set pieces in this episode, and locations and themes and character moments, I get the impression this script was originally like 30 pages long and ended up undergoing like an absolute ton of doctoring and editing and trimming and I feel like the Moss Man is going to come back later. I don't feel like that's the last we've seen of him.
Absolutely. And he gets mentioned at the end too. We see the spookfish in the next scene, and when Andreas is explaining, how they managed to construct the core, he does mention the Moss Man and the spookfish. So I think that's another reason why we're seeing these guys here, just to like remind us, oh yeah, these otherworldly beings exist down here.
Yeah, and it's this episode is, if nothing else, extremely economical in the screenplay.
Absolutely. Really tight, brilliantly written and boarded episode. We get this shot right where the spookfish are walking alongside them. I think it's interesting that they don't attack. And now that I'm thinking about it, they didn't really attack Marcy and Anne in the sleepover episode either. I don't think they're necessarily like evil or like nefarious or bad or anyway. Yeah. I think like they're just kind of neutral, which is interesting.
They feel very Ghibli-esque to me.
They do, yeah. They've got that kind of otherworldly, ethereal, magical like quality to them.
Peaceful yokai. They kind of remind me of Mushishi as well, the show Mushishi.
Yeah, I love that. And, Yunan and Olivia have a dialogue here where she asks, what is this place? And Olivia says, I think this is where our ancestors kept our otherworldly prisoners, right? So Olivia does have some knowledge of kind of what's going on. And her expression here does seem to imply that there is a good amount of guilt that's associated with this. So, I do feel for her here. And I think that this is, again, kind of an important note along her journey of, going after what she thinks is important rather than following Andrias's orders.
Indeed.
Yunan has a line here where she's like, delightful, which I thought was funny. They continue to head down and they stop at this creepy door, right? Where we're seeing the imagery of the core throughout the episode. We saw it in Andrias's room earlier, and now we're seeing this like circle thing with these creepy eyeballs. Just really, really creepy imagery. And they open the door, and lo and behold, there she is, our girl Marcy. But of course, not before we pass by and the eyes on the wall open up, which is just so creepy. Like, the visual of this is it's really good at like getting those unsettling vibes. Like, just really, really well done.
Those eyes remind me a lot of The Legend of Zelda, but I don't know what I'm thinking of specifically.
Oh, they remind me of like the Guardians kind of, and like the the temples and stuff. Guardians. I don't know.
I'm thinking of something else. I don't think I'm thinking. I mean, there's a lot of Breath of the Wild aesthetics in this.
Yeah.
By virtue of the fact there's a lot of it's that and particularly Castle in the Sky. There's a lot of Castle in the Sky in this as well.
Yeah.
Which was one of the main inspirations, incidentally, for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of that. You know what I'm thinking. Something Zelda-esque.
Yeah. There definitely is a reference in there somewhere. Rooster Tamer, Marcy's tank is labeled host. Bro, he went out of his way to get that thing custom engraved. That's really funny. So someone did translate this this word that's on Marcy's tank here, and it does say host, which is interesting. This is, again, another really like, kind of slap in the face moment here, right? Where they pull Marcy out, and the first thing that she says here is like, Sashi, and she's definitely out of it, but she is thinking about Sasha and Anne, right? She's like maybe hoping that they're the ones that saved her. And she's definitely thinking of her friends, which is kind of a little bit of a gut punch.
Yeah.
And then we get a moment here with Yunan and Olivia, right, where Yunan is kind of like shaking her and being like, come on, slapping her in the face, like, wake up. And
this person who was near mortally wounded, just beating her.
Just slapping her face. And then, Olivia's like, be gentle. And she has this I Heart Newtopia blanket, which is funny. And she like pulls this teacup out of like nowhere, which is really funny.
Every British person has a teacup on them for emergencies.
You've got to have your emergency teapot on you, like at all times.
You never
right?
know when you're going to be breaking a girl out of a life support tank underneath a castle. And you're going to need some tea.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Obviously. Yunan asks what the heck is going on, and Marcy's like, no, I'm okay. Lead the way, Captain Yoo-hoo, right? She's definitely still out of it, falling on the ground. I'm okay, she says, when she's clearly is not okay. This like vent thing ends up opening, and the eyes are like scanning them. This is really interesting to me. Like, it's very clear to me that the core and this room in general is very technological based, right? Like, there was kind of a lot of speculation as to like what the core was. Was it like some sort of eldritch like deity or something like that, right? But no, we learned in this episode that the core is technology based, which I thought was really interesting. So the way that this security system kind of works, right, is they scan their brains, and then this like projection ends up coming around, and it's projecting their nightmares, right? I think it's fair to confirm that they are projecting these characters' worst fear, which again, like, just a testament to this episode and how much it managed to fit in this. This is an amazing like character study moment for just all of these three characters, right? Which is like such a powerful scene that we get here. we get Lady Olivia's moment of fear here where they think that they're outside and Olivia sees her mother. And as we heard before, they have this vow to protect the planet, and Olivia's mother is clearly disappointed in her. How could you let this happen? She says, right? And Olivia is feeling very guilty, being like, I did everything I could.
This episode is very, it's very like knock, knock, knocking on Hootie's door, where you've got the it's like a series of vignettes to a degree with an overarching thread. I'll be honest, I'm a little undecided on whether or not I'm undecided on whether or not it's a little disorientating in this episode. I'm leaning more towards the not, particularly with Olivia, but with I don't know. We sort of end up going all over the place. But I do think they do it very well, especially considering how much time they have.
Yeah. I think it's good. I like Morgan's comment here. Olivia mentioned her mom at the beginning, and the grub hog's ferocity was foreshadowed all the way back in season 1. That's true. Yeah, I like how it is a little bit of a joke, like it's not too serious, but it does come back to play here, which is interesting. And then Marcy's fear. Yeah, definitely Marcy's fear makes a lot of sense, and I do want to talk more about that in a moment here. But first, we get this horrific nightmare version, right, of Olivia's mom, which is quite horrifying. And
I just like a quick side note on the core.
Yeah.
The core reminds me more than anything of Psychopaths. And I don't want to go into too much detail about that because I don't want to spoil Psychopaths for people who haven't seen it, because it is a bit of a twist. But to people who have seen Psychopaths, I kind of wonder if they might be taking the core in that sort of direction. But maybe. I'm going to leave it at that because I really don't want to spoil Psychopaths for people. But the idea of like a hive mind, of like collecting minds and creating like a superpower out of all these brilliant minds over history.
Yeah, that's interesting. Marcy, even though she's in her like totally out of it state of mind, she is smart enough and observant enough to notice that this is not real. It's just a projection. And she tries to explain that to Yunan, just try to stay calm and don't freak out. But of course, Yunan's fear ends up manifesting itself. And I love this moment. I thought it was a really nice moment of like kind of comic levity in the midst of like all this chaos, where we start to hear Yunan begin her monologue, right? The scourge of the Sand Wars, defeater of whatever. But she gets cut off, and her face absolutely just like drops in fear as she sees the sight of this horrific beast, right? And then we cut to this grub hog, which I don't know if this is a direct reference to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Obviously, Buffy the Vampire Slayer has just been on my mind recently a lot. You haven't met this character yet, Tom, but there is a character later on that has like kind of a silly fear. And I know that that's also kind of a common trope in fiction.
I feel like that's a very common trope.
Yeah, it's a common trope. So I don't know if it's a direct reference or not. But this, for anyone who has watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this moment reminded me of a certain character whose name begins with A, and she has a specific fear, which is quite funny. But yeah, this moment just reminded me of that. I thought it was funny. And Yunan explains, right? I had a bad experience when I was a little girl. One of these monsters nearly took my arm off. And we get kind of this flashback moment too, right? Where Yunan is a little girl and she got attacked by the grub hog, and she's like being pointed at and like laughed at by her peers. And I thought this was a really interesting detail, particularly for Yunan's character, because she takes a lot of pride in her accolades, in her like accomplishments, all of that stuff too, right? So I feel like this is an interesting kind of origin for that, like this idea of like kind of wanting to protect yourself from feeling weak or like looked down on by your peers. And I thought this was a very just compelling insight into Yunan's background and character.
It is just an awful lot of just raw information.
It is.
I think the biggest credit I could give to this episode is that they found basically every way to convey it except exposition. Exposition is incredibly minimal
Yeah, yeah,
in this episode, surprisingly, or at least minimal for just how much we learn about the characters and how it all sort of ties together in
yeah.
ways that sadly I think a lot of people won't really think about, but clearly you have.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Also, Gold Star Farrell, I do want to talk about the prom poster. We'll get there when we get there. Um, yeah, this episode does remind me of Grom as well, right? The idea of like our true fears manifesting. I think that's a common, not a trope necessarily, but a common kind of device used to kind of analyze characters. Yunan is JoJo posing. That's funny.
You haven't even seen JoJo.
I haven't. So that reference is lost on me as well. Yeah, we've got some color things going on here. So the grub hogs, they end up becoming absolutely terrifying, which freaks out Yunan, and Marcy at first is trying to explain, but then her fears end up manifesting. And this, is a really interesting look into Marcy and her own fears. This makes a lot of sense to me, right? Where she sees Anne and Sasha manifested, and they are visibly upset with her. They are not willing to forgive her. They say something like, "You betrayed us." And I do want to draw some attention to this prom poster that's in the background here, because this is a very interesting detail that I feel must have been intentional, especially in this kind of scene. So we get this poster in the back of Marcy's flashback where it says prom ? Yes or yes, right? And
yeah.
Whether or not you want to read this as romantic or not, like, I think that's totally up for interpretation. But the way that I interpreted this, and Tom, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. But Marcy, her fear since the beginning of the show has been, being alone, being rejected by her friends, being isolated. And I think like the way that she thought things were going to go when it came to Amphibia, right, were, how do I say this? She wanted to put Anne and Sasha in a situation where they couldn't reject her, where they couldn't leave her alone. She wanted to have them be with her and have these adventures in Amphibia. And she did not give them the option to say no, right?
Yeah.
When she brought them to Amphibia. And I feel like she definitely has some guilt about that. And so I feel like this prom poster, yes or yes, is kind of like a little bit of that manifestation of the guilt of her, taking away the agency, the right to choose for Sasha and Anne, right? And there's also this kind of added layer of pain when someone still rejects you in that situation, right? Where she did bring Anne and Sasha to Amphibia in the hopes that this was going to be the time where they get to be together. And even despite that, they still rejected her and still, were upset with her for what she did. And of course, she's afraid that they're not going to forgive her. But I feel like there's an added pain that comes to rejection when you think that you have presented a situation where they can't reject you, and yet they still do, right? So I just thought that was what that prom poster could have been kind of alluding to. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Tom.
It could also just have been set dressing.
I mean, sure, but I feel like this was so in your face and intentional. I feel like it had to have been there.
I don't feel like it's just set dressing.
Yeah,
because this is like this is the manifestation of her mindscape.
Yes.
I'll be honest, I didn't think about it nearly as deeply as you have.
Yeah.
I looked at it and my brain immediately went off on a tangent of Gravity Falls.
Yeah, there's that scene where Mabel.
Yeah, will you go out with me? Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's where my brain went. So I was kind of like, I wasn't thinking about it so deeply. I guess I never thought of her character arc as one about rejection, but I did think of it as one about loneliness.
Yes, yeah.
And isolation from people, because that is essentially the motivation upon which all of her behavior is pivoted.
Absolutely. She has the line in True Colors where she says, I didn't want to be alone. That's her whole motivation.
But I don't know. I didn't think. I'm not going to pretend like I thought about it nearly as deeply as you have. I think your thoughts are already interesting.
Sure, sure.
And I do agree that it's, in animation, it's pretty rare that they'll put something there just because.
Yeah.
Simply because of the nature of how animation works as a medium.
Sure. And of course, we can't ignore the fact that it's probably also very gay, Zoe Rooster Tamer.
So damn good.
So gay.
Like you wouldn't believe.
Gold Star Farah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you. Zoe says, I think it was about Sasha and the yellow balloon would be pink. Well, yeah, I don't think we need to read too deep into the colors or anything like that. But I do think like this idea of like trying to present a situation in which you can't get rejected and still face rejection. I feel like that's kind of what's going on here with this prom poster. And also just, Marcy's own pattern of trying to control the situation in a way where she doesn't get rejected, right?
Dodging the numbers.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, this is a really heartbreaking scene, right? Where Marcy does feel a lot of guilt, right? She says, "No, what I did was stupid and super dumb. I'm so sorry," right? She definitely does feel the weight and the guilt of what she's done, which is
different to the last thoughts we heard from her on the matter, where she was much more like, I gave you all of this. Look at all the stuff I gave you,
Yep, absolutely. Now she seems to really acknowledge the consequences of her action, and she does feel the guilt. This is a horrifying nightmare image, right, of Sasha and Anne kind of fused into one.
And horror.
Yeah. I saw some folks interpret this as like, maybe Marcy is afraid of like Anne and Sasha like almost teaming up to go against her. I just think that she's just all of her fears are kind of melded together is the way that I kind of read this.
She just got done watching The Fly and it's like fresh on her mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Steven Universe fusion. Yeah, totally. Fly.
God, it's Steven Universe fusion, but bad.
Yeah, it's like the scary fusions.
Steven Universe fusion gone horribly wrong, where like one of them got the dance move wrong, did a left kick instead of a right kick, and then they fucked it right up.
Yeah.
Now they look like this.
Yeah. If I watched this as a kid, I would absolutely have nightmares too. Yeah, Morgan, like the clusters, they do remind me of like the clusters from Steven Universe. Anne and Sasha say, it's too late. We want nothing to do with you ever again. So that's what Marcy's true fear is, right? Like being rejected from her friends, being alone. Just being completely rejected from her friends, which is really heartbreaking. Marcy, this whole scene is just really, really heartbreaking. And Yunan, though, this is a little bit of levity in this moment where Yunan, the sound effect that the Grubhub makes as it's popping in and out is quite amusing. But she discovers, right, that the eyes on the wall are what's causing the projections. And Marcy notices that, and she's like, "Okay, yeah, this is what the projections must be coming out of, right?" And so they put it together to take out the eyes. And I love that Olivia and Yunan are on it, right? They're like, right, and they start kicking ass. And I love the line that Olivia has here too, where she's like, "You'll pay for using my mother's likeness," which I thought was funny.
I appreciate the comment from Zoe. This creature was made by Bethesda.
It does look like a Bethesda video game boss.
It's never not topical to make fun of Bethesda for putting so little effort into bug checking their games.
Oh my god, that's
because
funny.
They're constantly re-releasing Skyrim 1,000,000 times every day.
Yeah, that's true.
With 1,000 bugs.
The three of them take out the eyes on the walls. There's one left, right? And the horrible nightmare Sasha Marcy fusion come to attack Marcy, but Yunan tosses her the crossbow. And as we have seen Marcy do before in the show, she's a really good shot. She's a pretty freaking good shot with that crossbow. She aims and fires and is able to take out the last eye, and the projections disappear. And we get yet another super gay moment between Yunan and Olivia, where Yunan literally picks Olivia up and spins her around in victory. Like, that's if that isn't gay, I don't know what is.
It's gay.
It's gay.
There's no doubt about it. That's a very gay maneuver.
It is. And I ship it, and they're the OTP, and if this doesn't become canon, I am rioting. Yeah, Yunan even has this kind of like cute little embarrassed moment afterwards too, right? Again, I think it's kind of another step in her character arc of learning to be a team player and open up to other people and help and be helped by others, right? So yeah, I love this little kind of just embarrassed moment we get from Yunan here as she acknowledges that she is herself becoming a team player, right? And Marcy even says that, right? She says, we make a good team, now let's get out of here. So yeah, a very, very kind of cute moment before we get the worst of it.
We make a good team is code for we're gay.
Yes, absolutely. We're gay, and we're your gay moms now. That's code for. Absolutely, we all ship it. We vote it.
Soviet Union anthem plays. It's funny you should say that, because one of my first comments when we were talking about this episode behind the scenes was about the Soviet Union.
That's right. Marcy, says a line where they're like, all right, we need to get out of here. I might need some help because she's still kind of out of it, right? And they pick Marcy up to get going. But of course, we are interrupted. When this hand like showed up, when Andrew says, it is legitimately so freaking scary. Like my eyes absolutely like just completely widened as soon as the shot came out. Because like I wasn't expecting them to get stopped and caught here, right? There were a lot of theories about Marcy being possessed by, what we thought was the Knight, but now we know is the Core. We had a lot of theories about Marcy being possessed by the Core and whether it was going to like be kind of like, dormant in her for a while, whether like, Olivia and Yunan were going to escape and then like the Core was going to come back later. So I was really not expecting this moment. This was a huge surprise to me that they did end up actually getting caught.
Well, of course they did. They were speaking at the top of their fucking lungs.
So I guess it makes sense.
That hand coming out of the darkness like that gets a no from me. That gets a no from me.
That was pretty scary. That was pretty...
The judges say no.
King Andrea says like leaving so soon, but we have much to discuss. And Olivia's like, how did you know, right? How did you other than the fact that they were speaking at the top of their lungs?
I really wish it would have made it all okay to me if he just said, are you kidding me? You guys have been just like shouting and screaming for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like something about a grub hog and an arm, like, I don't know, but you've been making a real ruckus.
Yeah. This child is now ours. Morgan jumped out of your seat. Yeah, totally terrifying. I was expecting them to escape and Marcy to become slowly possessed. That's what I was thinking too, Zoe. So this was definitely a shock to me that they were stopped right away.
King Andreas only becomes more and more like unsettling as a villain with every time he appears.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been watching you the whole time, right? And then we get this creepy reveal that the Core's eye opens up on Andreas's crown here, and it's like, oh my god, this is so. Oh, this made my skin crawl. It was so creepy.
Yeah, God, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, very, very unsettling. Just overall major creep. The Core ends up descending down, right? And this thing is terrifying.
Not where an eye is meant to be.
No, it's all just so unsettling, all so creepy. The Core ends up descending down, and so this is where we finally figure out, what the Core is, right? Marcy's like, what the heck is that thing? And then she gets like grabbed in a really scary way. Like the frame of like the claw on Marcy's face is like absolutely terrifying. Like I'm like kind of tearing up just like talking about the scene because like it's so scary. Like it's so freaky. This whole thing just like absolutely chilled me. as she's getting tied down into the chair and locked in, Andreas explains what the core actually is, right? And so he explains our ultimate creation, a collection of Amphibia's greatest minds preserved for all eternity. So we finally figure out what the core is. People were speculating, right, whether this was like a eldritch being, some kind of like deity of some kind, whether it was like related to the Ohms in some way. But I feel like this is a really interesting and really freaky and compelling and scary and just really brilliant kind of main villain that we're getting here. I wasn't expecting this, but like as soon as he explained it, I was like, wow, that's actually like really interesting and really brilliant. So this core is actually a collection of like minds, and it's from the previous ancestors, right? So I saw some comments in the chat, some folks speculating like maybe Andreas's like parents are directly in here, which would be really interesting, because that would also explain a little bit about like this fear that he has of the core, or like why he I mean, maybe it doesn't really matter actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
I'd be so interested to see Andreas as a kid. I'd be so interested to see that.
Yeah. Oh my God, if we got some flashbacks.
It makes me wonder if they could in any way make us empathize with him at all, or create another facet to him where it makes him more of a tragic villain than just a straight up horrible bastard.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
It is Psycho-Pass. This thing that they're doing, it is Psycho-Pass.
Yeah. I've never seen Psycho-Pass, so I'm not familiar with it.
Literally, it is Psycho-Pass.
That's cool though. Yeah. That's cool. I really like that though. So this is really interesting. Whether or not Andreas's parents are in this thing or not, I don't know if that'll kind of come into play later. But it's very clear that this thing has an influence on Andreas, right? Like there is a fear from Andreas of this thing. And I think like the fact that now we get this connection, right? It's not just that it's a deity or whatever that he's serving. Like these are his ancestors. These are the people that he is like continuing the mission of, right? Like he is continuing these conquerors' mission.
It makes you wonder what the end game is. Like, what are they doing this for?
Yeah,
they're collecting all these minds. What are they doing?
Yeah,
where does this go?
And Andreas does have a line here, right, where he says, and this is where we kind of also get the tie-in from the otherworldly prisoners, right, where Andreas says, studying the Mossmen improved our medical technology, and the shadowfish. Studying the shadowfish is where we truly learn to conquer death, and that makes a lot of sense for me because the main villain's kind of motivation of becoming immortal or conquering death, that's a very common evil motivation. So that tracks for me that Andreas and his ancestors were trying to figure out a way to become immortal and to conquer death.
Explain why he's so damn old.
Yeah, that too, right? So maybe like the Mossman's medical technology is what allows him to sustain his body for so long. And then whatever they got from the spookfish, whether it was like, how to transfer someone's like consciousness or spirit or whatever, maybe that's like how they figured that out. But in studying that, they were able to figure out how to build the core. So I think that's really interesting. They built the core, for one thing, based off of studying the other worlds, different species and different technologies. It does kind of remind me a little bit of the Owl House, where Bellows was studying the basilisks, right, to figure out how to drain the magic out of people. So it kind of reminded me of that. So Andreas and his ancestors studied the otherworldly prisoners to essentially copy their technology. So I thought that was really interesting and really good.
Yeah, I was thinking of that as well, actually.
Yeah,
I think the way they're handling the whole Bellows thing is a lot more like the cards are still very close to their chest.
Yeah, definitely.
By comparison, but the parallels are definitely there.
Yeah, definitely. Andreas also has a line here where he admits, right? He's like, my host wanted the smartest, best person, the only one who could beat me at Flipboard. So this is the confirmation here, at least to me, that most, if not all of at least the Flipboard games that Andreas played with Marcy was genuine, right? So there was a lot of lies when it came to Andreas and Marcy's relationship, but there was also a lot of truth, which I think is really interesting. And so Marcy was legitimately able to beat Andreas at Flipboard, and that ended up, being a little bit against her favor, as that made her more desirable for the core to take over. And I think that that's interesting too, right? So, you know, Andreas did say, like, maybe we should test it on someone else first, or maybe we should use this on someone else first. But the core specifically wants Marcy. And the core specifically wants Marcy for her intelligence and for her strategizing abilities. So that makes me think that the core has some more motivations that we don't necessarily know or isn't as obvious that it needs a level of intelligence and strategy for, which I think is interesting. Like, do you have any theories on that, Tom? Like why the core might specifically want Marcy?
I don't know. I guess I because of the Psychopaths connection, I did interpret it more as like she is maybe just one of many, and perhaps there have been more hosts in the past. We still don't know an awful lot about this.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that the eyes are like scrolling binary, and binary is like specifically human code. So there's part of me which thinks that you know, since we know that there's been dimension hopping, and since we know there's been contact before between you know, Amphibia and Earth, it makes me wonder to what degree a human touch is involved in this machine, and I just don't know. There's so much. There are lots of possibilities, and I haven't really landed on anything that I feel strongly enough about to confidently say this is my prediction.
Yeah. No, I really like that observation. I didn't even think of that. Like how much we know that, you know, the core has some technology from different worlds, but how much of it is from like the human world? Yeah, I think that's a really good question that I didn't think of. I would love to hear anyone else's theories too about like why they think the core specifically wanted to take over Marcy. Fly says, I feel like it would just need a brain to use, a big brain to run calculations. Yeah, I like that. Core may be able to use her brain as extra processing power. Yeah, I like that too. I feel like the tubes connecting to her limbs means it's transferring muscle memory. Oh, that's interesting too.
I had thought about that as well, actually. It made me think of Upgrade. I mentioned it in the chat. Made me think of the movie Upgrade.
Yeah.
And the way they do fight scenes in Upgrade, they make him move in like a very robotic way.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to see some fight scenes with Darcy, like, and see what they do with her movements, because we saw way back with the promo as well that she's like moving in like a weird, like almost insect-like kind of way.
Totally.
Yeah. Interested to see what they do.
Yeah, Marcy's the core is using Marcy as RAM. That's interesting. Yeah, so definitely a lot of computery vibes for sure with the core. So yeah, definitely technological based, which is interesting. We see that human code going on.
It makes me wonder to what degree the IT gals might end up.
That's true.
Coming back.
Oh my god, the real heroes, the IT gals.
They're gonna show up and they're gonna be like, right, let's clean this mess up.
Yes. Oh my god, I would love that. I would absolutely love that.
One of them packing a fucking pump action shotgun, just guns Andreas down in like just a second.
Yeah.
Zero effort. Easy peasy.
I would love to see them like hack into this or something like that. That would be so cool. And I do want to also acknowledge Andreas's line here, right, where he says like, I begged the core to consider an alternative host, but it specifically wanted Marcy. So there is this a little bit of push and pull that we're getting from Andreas continued on here, right, where some of his affection for Marcy does seem to be actually legitimate. Like he does seem to have some true care for Marcy and feeling of respect at very least, but like, you know, admiration towards her. But I think that his fear of the core is probably stronger, right? I don't know if it is his evil, nefarious motivation to, you know, take over the other worlds that's motivating him, or if it really is just like fear of what the core is capable of, or, you know, what the consequences might be. It definitely can be both. But whatever it is stronger than his affection for Marcy. Which leads us then to this final horrifying scene that we've ended the episode on. Yeah, this whole thing was just so shocking to me. My jaw was on the floor. We get this moment from Andreas too, right? Again, that little bit of push and pull that's inside of him where he's not able to watch. He has to look away as this horrifying thing is happening to Marcy. But of course, he doesn't do anything to stop it. And the fact that we're also seeing this from like the shadow perspective and like the red and black with the really dramatic music playing in the background, like, oh my God, this whole thing visually and like the audio combined together was just absolutely shocking and horrifying, and the voice acting as well. Marcy's voice actor did an amazing job with the horrified screams of agony. Like this was painful to watch. This was quite rough. I don't know about y'all.
It's a royal nuisance.
Oh my God.
No, yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Yeah, it's definitely scary.
It reminded me kind of the scene in God, what's it called? The Green Mile. When the guy puts that guy on the electric chair without wetting the sponges.
Oh.
Kind of reminded me of that. Only less horrifying. See, the thing is, I just have such a large frame of reference for horrifying things happening in cinema.
You do.
Which is probably why it didn't horrify me as much as it horrified other people, because I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, the Green Mile. Glad I'm not watching that right now.
Yeah, but this is definitely not something that we expect from, where in the last episode, the biggest conflict was like Anne's clothes got cut up by Sprig, right? Like this is just a very big shift in tone for the show.
Yeah, it's not John Coffey, it's the other guy. It's the John Coffey gets a still macabre ending, but a better ending than the other guy.
Yeah.
The guy, yeah. I don't want to talk about it. It's pretty macabre.
Yeah. Zoe says the helmet kind of looks like an ohm, so this might be might be a reference to the ohms. Yeah, I think that there could be some connection there, but we're gonna have to wait and see. And yeah, Gold Star Farrell, her scream was really terrifying and hard to listen to. Yeah, as I was like rewatching this episode, like it's awful. It's so horrifying. The screams, and then yeah, we see the binary code get kind of uploaded into her, and then it's like kind of downloading away from the core, and we get this really kind of eerie moment where the core is like turned off. It's like empty. The glow is completely gone, and it kind of like in its big entire massive weight just kind of crashes down.
The more I think about that binary code, the more important I feel like it is, because we with the rest of like the computer technology that we see in Amphibia, it has its own like ancient language, its own ancient lexicon that we see.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is like to my knowledge, to my memory anyway. This is the first time we've seen Arabic numerals.
Yeah, that's true.
In Amphibia, and it really like I do feel like there's some kind of human involvement here. Like there's got to be, surely. If not, that's a massive plot hole. But I feel like they wouldn't make that mistake. Yeah,
I wonder if that's going to tie in somehow, and maybe that will eventually lead to the IT gals being able to, or someone from Earth being able to access this otherworldly technology somehow, because there is like some sort of connection with Earth.
IT gals, or it'll be Polly, because she's obviously learned all this stuff, and
oh my God, yeah,
all kind of pulling together.
Yes, I would love that.
Maybe more likely it'd be Polly, because they've already set that up, and that will kind of tie her kind of current arc into a nice bow.
I would really love that, though. That would be brilliant.
But at the same time, I would love the IT gals to just come through a portal with a couple of fuck off shotguns and just like waste Andreas. Just like, right, let's.
Oh my God, they absolutely should.
Took a couple of gay ass IT technicians to fix the whole situation.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Fly says the entire spooky, scary, creepy thing we've been fearing for months completely transferred into Marcy. What if Marcy helped program it? That would be interesting.
I doubt that, because she doesn't know what it is. Like she looks at it and she's like, what is that? I don't think, I doubt Marcy was involved with it. The whole thing seems totally new to her.
Yeah. Totally agree, Zoe, that this is really scary. When it only was an an AI maybe, I hoped Corrupted Marcy would be canon. And when people were drawing fan art of it when it was an AU. And once the trailer dropped, I was so excited, but I didn't expect it to hurt this bad. Yeah, totally agree. I like the idea that the IT gals are going to transfer the core to a comically small robot. I like that. That would be funny.
Transfer it to Anne's bear.
Oh my god. That'd be
Just a little
hilarious.
nibble.
Oh my god.
Eyes. Cream.
Terrible, terrible. I think that would just make the core more creepy, honestly.
It would make it fucking hilarious, though.
It would be. It would be. And then we have
nibble.
we of course end with this horrifying, voice that comes out of Marcy, or AKA Darcy, as we see in the credits, which I think is a little silly if they do end up calling her Darcy. But Dark Marcy,
that's what
whatever.
She's called. It's what it says in the credits.
Yeah.
Darcy.
Yeah. And she has this creepy kind of robotic layered voice effect on her where she says hello there, right? And we get this really ominous the music too really reminded me of kind of the big villain reveals of old school cartoons. I don't know what specifically it reminded me of, but it reminded me of I don't know, kind of Samurai Jack kind of vibes where we see the big villain or whatever, but yeah it kind of gave me those big villain vibes.
A foolish samurai warrior wielding a magic sword. That whole intro is etched into my brain.
Yeah, totally.
I have to admit, in a morbid way, when she said hello there, I did laugh. I laughed just now. I laughed when it happened because it immediately made me think of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Hello there.
So one thing that I want to, before we wrap up, just kind of a little bit of a theory from me in terms of where we're going to go from here. So again, I think that the core needs Marcy for something, right? There's a specific reason that the core wanted to take over Marcy and make her the host. And I think that that's going to be for a very specific reason. And I'm also interested to kind of see what's going on with Marcy internally, because as we have now figured out, the core is a collection of consciousnesses, right? And so I'm interested to see if the core is going to be able to communicate with Marcy within kind of her own mindscape, and how much Marcy is going to be able to control herself, right? Because I feel like it would be really interesting to me if there was some sort of conflict going on within Marcy, and the core was actually not necessarily able to 100% control her. And I think it would be really interesting if the core did have some sort of temptation aspect to it, where it's kind of convincing Marcy you want to have knowledge, we have this collected knowledge that's absolutely brilliant, right? And to have a little bit of a back and forth with Marcy. Sorry, go ahead.
To tell the truth, I would kind of hate it if they did that, because that's been done to death. That's been done everywhere. The whole temptation of knowledge. I hate that. It's been done so many times.
I think that's fair, but the reason why I think it would be the reason why I think that it would be kind of more interesting in this case specifically is oh gosh, where am I going with this? Marcy, like I said in the last episode, there's a theme, right, that's going on with a lot of the characters. We see this happen in multiple episodes where a character will do something wrong and they will have to directly come face to face with the consequences of their actions. And when another character comes in to, scold the first character and tell them what they did wrong, they are able to more easily forgive the character when they realize that that character has already learned their lesson through facing the consequences of their actions. So I kind of want that with Marcy, because I kind of don't want Marcy to have like this moment where she's like explaining and like begging Anne and Sasha for forgiveness. I want her to go through an arc gone through an arc herself so that she is ready for forgiveness when she apologizes to Anne and Sasha.
I get that and I agree. I just don't think we need to go the temptation of a knowledge route to get there. You know,
that's fair. That's fair.
I'm thinking more along the lines of like is it Greed in Full Metal Alchemist? Who's the one?
Yeah.
Who ends up taking on that guy as a host, and he ends up like his personality is so strong and his willpower is so strong that it ends up like coming through. And I don't think we'll end up with a situation like that where they ended up coming to an understanding. But I do think that I would like to see something similar to that, where
Yeah.
Marcy like has a battle from the inside.
Yes. I don't think it necessarily has to be like a temptation thing, but I do want there to be an internal battle with Marcy.
Yes, and I'm sort of forming these thoughts as I'm going, but like thinking more about that binary code thing and like the possibility of this device being somewhat human.
Yeah,
kind of makes me wonder if it's like it's not necessarily that they need Marcy specifically; it's that they need a really really smart human.
Yeah, that could be it.
Because they've got like I get the impression that this is all part of this grander scheme which Andreas is holding very close to his chest.
Yeah, definitely.
Which leads me to kind of question how accidental it is that Marcy found the box to begin with, and to what degree it might be planted there, to what degree there are strings being pulled.
Yeah.
And this whole thing with this interaction with Earth and the human race. I wonder if they needed a human host specifically with a certain level of basic raw brain capacity,
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And I didn't really think too much about that, but that could absolutely be tied into this somehow. Because I mean, they had all these otherworldly prisoners, right? They had the Moss Man, they had the Spookfish, but yeah, maybe they did specifically need a really smart human to be able to pull this together. Eru, I'm so happy to have you here. Glad that you could make it here today. Battle of the center of the mind kind of thing. Yeah, that's exactly kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen. Zoe says, I want Marcy to fight back. Yeah, totally. Gold Star says, I wonder what the childhood friends line is about. Oh, that's right. We didn't get that in this episode, and we got that in the trailer where the core says, isn't it time to like let go of those childhood friends of yours? So yeah, I think there is going to be some sort of internal back and forth.
They're not going to waste that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if they do the temptation of knowledge, I'm going to pee my whole pants.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily has to be temptation of knowledge, but my prediction for Marcy's character arc going forward, and maybe what we'll see, for the rest of the season, is some sort of internal battle with the core and Marcy, and her in that internal battle, her kind of coming face to face with the actions of her consequences and learning her lesson that way. I think it's fair to say that Marcy has faced a lot of consequences and probably like learned her lesson in some way. But I want to see that, completely internalized from her and like completely understood by her before she goes to Anne and Sasha for forgiveness.
I do feel the need to quantify just how tired the temptation of knowledge trope is. We're talking about a trope that appears in the Bible, like literally in the Bible.
Okay, fair enough.
When a trope is that old, we need to throw it away. Okay, the Bible is a waste of paper. I don't need the temptation of knowledge anymore. Okay, it was tired when it was getting pretty run down by the time they did it with Van Hohenheim, and by the time they did it in Horizon Zero Dawn, I was already just like. Really?
Oh, you know what though? I agree with you. The temptation of knowledge is a very, very commonly used trope. But I'm actually really glad that you brought up Van Hohenheim, because I was getting Full Metal Alchemist vibes from this episode too. Because the idea of the core being a collection of consciousnesses and entities, it did remind me of the Philosopher's Stone as well, right? And there is a scene in the Philosopher's Stone where the fact that the collective is made up of individuals plays a very important part in the climax of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. So I'm curious, if there is going to be a connection there too, and if the individuation of this amass consciousness, collective is going to be an important plot point in the future.
I like that, individuation.
Yes.
I applaud you for squeezing in the word individuation.
Thank you. I felt very big brain in that moment.
Someone's been brushing up on their French phenomenology.
I got my word a day calendar in front of me and learning things every day. No, I'm kidding. I'm not learning anything. Anyway. So I think that's all I have to say about this episode. Any more kind of predictions that I have going forward, I think are not going to be useful because this show again, is really good at surprising me and throwing me twists that I don't expect. So I don't want to make any more predictions other than what I've said, but I do think that this recurring theme of a character learning their lesson and therefore not necessarily needing to be scolded or hated on by whoever they wronged. I think Anne for sure, and probably Sasha will eventually see that Marcy has seen the error of her ways and faced her consequences and done her part to correct them.
Honestly, I feel like they're just going to be like more glad to see her alive, and that emotion is probably going to be more like prevalent to them than
that's
like,
true too.
Marcy, we're shaking our heads at you in shame.
Yeah.
You got stabbed and you're definitely traumatized, but we're going to make you feel really shitty about that thing you did several months ago.
Yeah. I think Marcy has learned her lesson. I think it's fair to say that she has gone through a lot. Hear me out.
What if Marcy turns the core into a good person, becomes a Venom? That's what they do with Greed. That's kind of what they do with Greed.
Yeah, in Full Metal Alchemist.
In Full Metal Alchemist. And in a way that's way better than Venom, because Venom sucks.
That's a good theory, though.
I don't know if I see that happening, because whereas Venom is a single symbiote with a single mind.
Yeah.
And as is Greed.
Yeah.
This is lots and lots and lots of minds. This is I don't know. I don't see that happening personally. I think the nature of this creature, of this thing.
Yeah, I think it's more likely we'll see some sort of a turn from Andreas, and not necessarily that he'll become a good guy, but some sort of realization from him or something like that. I think that's more likely than the core. Fly says that their money is on Andreas' redemption, which is interesting. Yeah, I think it's on the table. I think it's on the table, but we'll see if it actually ends up coming up. Yeah, lesser of two evils. I think that's true, but I think it'll really depend on whether or not Andreas's actually whether his care for Marcy is stronger than his fear of the core, right? I think that's kind of what it'll come down to at the end.
Yeah. She's got brain swole.
Brain swole.
She's stronger than the core. She's brain swole.
Yes. Cool. Well, any other final thoughts on this, Tom, before we wrap it up for the day?
I'm checking my notes, and it says here right at the bottom that Thatcher is dead, and we must honk in celebration.
That is something to celebrate for sure. Don't really want a guy to who stabbed his style to be redeemed. Yeah, I mean, when I say redeemed, Zoe, I don't think that he will become a good guy, but I think his motivations will be something we can empathize with. I feel like that's kind of more what I mean by redeem.
Yeah, people are much, much more complicated than that.
Yeah. Because I think we can empathize with Andreas and hate him at the same time.
Yes, it's the Rorschach effect. You can look at a character and go I really pity this person. I really pity what they have become.
Yes.
I still think they're wrong and bad, but there's still that part of me that feels desperately sorry for them.
Yes, feel sorry for them. I think that's a good way to put it. So I think that's definitely possible with Andreas for sure. All right, cool. Well, everyone, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. I really loved hearing all your thoughts on this episode. This was a really big one. This was an incredible episode. Again, I just have to acknowledge how tightly written and how amazing they managed to get so much information into one episode in. I think that they set us up for a lot of interesting things to come. I know a lot of people too were getting frustrated that we hadn't seen Marcy until this point. So we finally got Marcy. She's finally here. We're finally continuing on with that thread. Excited to see if Sasha and Marcy end up having a confrontation before Anne makes her way back to Amphibia. That'll be really interesting to see. And yeah, I'm excited next week to watch Hop Pop become an actor.
Hop Pop already is an actor.
I'm excited for us to go back to our fun, episodic shenanigans for the next week's episode. Let me just quickly, I want to look up what the descriptions are for next week's episode before we wrap up. And then on Sunday next week, we'll do our next week's Amphibia discussion stream. We've got Hollywood Hop Pop. Hop Pop tries to make it as an actor in Hollywood. And If You Give a Frog a Cookie, which is Anne's trust and trusts a questionable scientist who may have found a way to get them to Amphibia. So maybe we'll finally meet that blue hair character that we've seen in some of the intros and previews and stuff. So maybe that character will get introduced to us next week. So I'm excited.
I just want more IT gals.
Yes, I hope they come back. I really hope they come back.
I want more IT gals. I want Mr. X to go away. Any episodes they had with Mr. X, I want them to replace with episodes with the IT gals, please.
Yes.
That's my request.
Yes, I totally agree. Totally agree. So yeah, next week I'll be back with some Pokemon and then our weekly Amphibia discussion stream. We've just got 2 more weeks left of Amphibia before the hiatus. So yeah. And yeah, Gold Star, I totally agree that next week is probably going to be a nice little breather, nice little break before we...
What if they didn't, though? What if next week was just like...
More angst, more pain.
Everyone dies. Sprig contracts hepatitis B and...
Oh, no.
And Hop Pop loses his eye in a tragic gardening accident. And...
I'm really excited to discuss the following week's episode, though, the Froggy Little Christmas, because that one is going to have the song from Rebecca Sugar, I believe. So that'll be really fun.
Oh my God, don't do this to me. I'm going to cry.
I'm also going to cry. I'm definitely going to cry.
Rebecca Sugar is like
a genius.
Top three just creators I love and respect. She's way up there with like Alan Moore. Like she has no, like, I can't fathom that she's just good at everything. Like
she is
amazing, like, writer and illustrator and animator and musician.
Yeah.
Oh God,
so I'm really excited for Froggy Little Christmas because that's also going to be a 22-minute episode. So a lot of big stuff will happen there.
A Froggy Little Christmas.
Oh, that was beautiful.
that was my Christmas crooning. You're welcome.
That was gorgeous.
Your Froggy's gay.
Yes, incredible. All right, everyone. So yeah, we'll be discussing Hollywood Hop Hop and If You Give a Frog a Cookie next week, and then Froggy Little Christmas the week after that. Hope to see you there. Really excited to get going with this season. And we're going to be wrapping it up for now, but hopefully we'll see you in the Discord server, continue talking about this episode. I want to hear your theories. I want to hear what you think is going to happen to Marcy. You should make a band. You should make a band. I agree. Tom should make a band.
I did have a band. I had a band once. I do music for myself. I do music solo. I am still debating doing a recording of a song for my upcoming video because it's a really personal video, but don't quote me on that because I might not, because that's a big jump for me. I've never posted my kind of music online before, but yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm excited for that video, and if y'all are not subscribed to Tom's channel already, you definitely should be. You and I apparently need to start a band.
It'll be like Chicken Choice Judy.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! Totally. I would love that. Even though I have like very little musical talent.
You learn things quickly. I'll teach you.
That's true. We'll figure it out. Well, we should. All right, everyone. Let's go ahead and wrap this up for today. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us and discussing this episode with us. Hopefully we'll see you all next week. Stay safe if you're going out. Wear a mask. Get vaccinated if you're able to. Take care of yourselves and those around you. And hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.